2025 is the year to cook at home and save a ton of money. And I've got you covered with 24 of the best recipes from 2024 to give you complete inspiration. I also want to say thank you so much for hanging out with Meals with Maria for 2024. We had an amazing year. I appreciate your support as always, and I'm super excited for an amazing 2025 and sharing lots of new, incredible, budget-friendly recipes.
Next up, we're making chicken Diane, and you want to start with 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of oil in a pan over medium-high heat. And kind of while that butter is melting, I'm just mincing a shallot, not a scallion, a shallot up. And then we're also going to mince up about a 1/4 cup of parsley, and then I'm just cutting an lemon in half. It's late because we're gonna need some lemon juice. Now to that hot pan, we're gonna add about 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And the budgetness, or the thing that I love about this budget recipe, is these boneless, skinless chicken thighs are usually pretty inexpensive. They are full of flavor. They're probably my favorite chicken to make. And then we're just using things that I generally have in my pantry. There is one thing in this recipe, some brandy, that maybe, isn't a general thing. If you don't have that, you could always use like a little marsala. I sometimes have like cooking marsala, or even just like some beef broth will probably do. So you can see I seasoned these liberally with salt and pepper, and then we're just trying to brown them up on each side and cook them all the way through. So mine were like not super brown on one side the first time I flipped them, but I ended up flipping them again and they got like a nice brownness to them and they were fully cooked through. And once that happens, you just want to remove them from the pan, and we're going to start cooking the mushrooms. Start by adding the shallot to the pan, and then we're going to add about 16 ounces of sliced mushrooms. And we're going to cook those down for about 5 minutes until they are fully browned. And at this point, you want to add in that brandy. So you need about 2 tablespoons of brandy. I realized I have brandy on hand from making sangria. It's like a general sangria ingredient. So if you're a sangria lover, you may already have the brandy. And that brandy is really going to help to deglaze the pan. So you can see all those little brown bits coming off the bottom. And there's just so much flavor in that. Just make sure to use a wooden spoon. You're kind of scraping everything up. And then you want to add a 1/2 cup of either chicken broth, or you can use chicken bouillon, or you could even just use some water and salt if you don't have either of those things. And then we're using a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. I'm a sucker for Dijon mustard, so anything with Dijon, I am in. And then a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and a 1/3 cup of heavy cream. I feel like the heavy cream is like what makes this dish. Like, I like anything with heavy cream added to it, basically. And then just add the juice from the lemon. Again, lemon's super inexpensive, but if you just have like the jars of lemon juice, that'll do too. And then add in that fresh parsley. You could also do dried in this. Give it a mix, give it a stir. That sauce is pretty much done now. All you need to do is add in that cooked chicken, make sure everything's all the way warmed through and that the sauce is completely covering the chicken, and serve it up. I served ours with just some instant mashed potatoes because it's easy for a weeknight. There is so much flavor in this. I kept gushing over all the ingredients, but these are some of my favorite things, and they're just things that I have around the house anyway. So it's just a super easy dinner to make that feels like something you'd get at a fancy restaurant. And yeah, this next one is the opposite of that. This is poor mama cheeseburgers, and they're so delicious. So you want to start by browning and seasoning 1 pound of ground beef. Make sure to drain out any excess fat that you don't want. And then I'm going to chop up an onion pretty small. This is up to you whether you want to use onion or onion powder. You can even use like the dried minced onions and reconstitute those almost like you would do with like I hear that's how they make them at McDonald's. And then in a 9x13 pan, you want to butter 5 slices of bread and place them butter side down on the bottom of the pan. And the 5th piece like kind of fits. You could definitely grab a larger pan. And the 1 pound of beef works really well with the 5 sandwiches. So if you want to make more, you can very easily double this or triple this and just get bigger casserole dishes, or even use a sheet pan. And then you just want to put American cheese slices on top of that bread, and then we're going to put the ground beef on top of that. And then this all depends on your preferences. So if you like onions, put the onions on top. You can put ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise. If you like pickles, you can put that on. I mean, you can really make this your own. It tastes good with bacon too, or like bacon bits. Anything you have on hand, go ahead and do that. And then top it with another slice of American cheese, and then another slice of white bread with butter. And then you just want to bake these at 350 degrees for about 18 minutes, and then we're going to broil them for 3 just to get crispy on top. This is what comes out. It's actually amazing that the bottom of them stays crispy, and these are, and maybe not the healthiest thing, but they are definitely a dinner winner.
What do you think, Jaden?
10 out of 10.
Now we're going to go a bit healthier and make a strawberry goat cheese salad. And then I'm going to make dressing for my strawberry goat cheese pecan salad. This is my mom's recipe for a balsamic vinaigrette. She's been making forever. And when my mom makes it, she makes it in a mug. So I know it would be pretty and cute to do it inside of a mason jar, but for some reason we got to do it like mom. You want 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and then 1 clove of minced garlic. And then you also need about a tablespoon of sugar. Start with a half and then mix and taste, because you'll be surprised at how much sugar it needs, but you do sometimes with this one need to adjust as necessary. So you can see the consistency here. It's pretty thick. Slicing my strawberries. Again, kids got into the strawberries and ate a lot of my strawberries. So my salad's actually going to be significantly smaller than my recipe for the salad, and especially what I would serve at like a larger brunch. But I didn't want to make it too big of a salad because I just knew we weren't going to eat that much. There was only 4 of us eating this particular day. So it wasn't like my big Easter brunch. I was just serving this for everybody, and we ended up having the leftovers through the week, which was very nice. So you want to slice up your strawberries. The recipe calls for a half a pound of them. And then I'm just putting some salad on a plate. I find that when you put your greens on a platter or like a very shallow bowl, that is the most beautiful presentation of a salad, and so many more people will eat it. So I wouldn't put it in a deep bowl. I'm against deep bowls for salads, especially at like a gathering like this, because they just don't look as beautiful and they're just not as appetizing. So I put ours on a plate, and then I laid out the strawberries, and then I topped that with some crushed or chopped pecans, and then top that with crumbled goat cheese. And so you can do this to your liking. The recipe is specific, but it doesn't matter. It really is, make it your own. And then drizzle that with the salad dressing, and this is such a beautiful salad. Next up is an avocado chicken caprese, and this is beautiful. Like if you serve this, everyone is going to swoon over it. And I ended up using some really delicious good chop chicken breast in this salad. We're going to get back to it and marinate these beautiful chicken breasts. I'm going to start with 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Now you can marinate this in a bowl if you like, but I love using these little bag holders and then just putting it inside of a Ziploc bag, because I can really easily mix this up, make sure that the chicken is fully covered in the marinade, and then just throw it in my fridge. So it's just really easy clean up for me and makes things very simple. And you can put this in the fridge for up to 5 hours, but I just did mine for like an hour before, and the flavor was fine. There was plenty of flavor, so you can kind of do this right before if you want, or you can do it as something ahead of time. And then I have a cup and a half of grape tomatoes. I'm just slicing in half, and you can use as little or as much of these as you want. You could always cut down this recipe too if you're just making it for a smaller crowd, or make even more chicken and double it if you're making it for a large crowd. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but when I was in college, I worked at Bertucci's, and I was a server, so I waited tables, but I did learn a few tricks in the kitchen. It's kind of one of the places that I kind of fell in love with cooking, and I tried to learn as much as I could. And one of those tricks was how to slice basil. So what they used to do was you take all of the basil leaves, or as many as you can at a time. You just do kind of like a few batches, and you stack them up on top of each other, and then you roll them the long way, almost like you're making like a paper towel roll or something like that. And then you slice them kind of the fat way, or like across, about 1 centimeter apart, because you want strips. And so when you take that apart, then you have these beautiful, perfect basil strips. And it's super simple in order to do a bunch of them at the same time, and it makes a really clean cut, so it's not like this like weird like scraggly basil. And that's what they would put on their beautiful margarita pizzas. So you can do that at home really easy, and it's especially helpful to use that method when you're cutting up a bunch of basil for a salad like this. And then we're going to need 2 avocados for this recipe. And in my last video where I my whole family of 5 ate out of our pantry for 7 days when we really should have gone to the grocery store. Some fun recipes in that video. I was talking about avocados, and I was sharing this perfect avocado, I don't even know what it is, like a knife type thing. And I was saying that I had one of those like plastic ones that made slices, but I never really liked the way that it sliced the avocado. But I've had this metal one for probably like 10 years, and I always find myself going back to it. And I also always used to slice the avocado. You see what I just did there. I used to slice it like that. I'm getting used to, I found a much better way. Take the avocado out first. And this one kind of got like cut when I took the pit out. So it wasn't perfect, but that's okay. Nothing is ever perfect. And so I pull the avocado out using this tool first, and then I slice it. And I find that that makes such a cleaner slice. And then my avocado looks so much more beautiful, especially when putting it on like a platter for a salad like this, if I do it that way. So this salad is great because you kind of assemble part of it ahead of time if you'd like. So that's why it's really nice for entertaining. I always like to choose things for events that you can kind of make part of it ahead of time. I hate trying to cook while people are visiting, because then you're kind of missing out on the party, right? So the key is to find things you can kind of make ahead. So I always like to serve a salad, especially one for an event, on a platter. I find that people kind of go bananas for it versus putting it into a bowl and basically hiding it in that bowl. I feel like it gets all crammed together and nobody can see what a beautiful thing it is, see all of the amazing ingredients. So especially for this salad, we want to put that on a platter. So I started with a large package of spring mix. You can use your favorite lettuce. Then 1 package of, I think it's like clingine, I can't even say the word, but the little ball mozzarellas. You could also use mozzarella slices for this. That would be really good too. And then top that with those sliced tomatoes. And at this point, you could just cover this and put this in the fridge and then do the rest of it later when everyone arrives, especially because you don't want the avocado to sit out for too long. However, you can always put the avocado on there. You could always give it a squeeze of lemon or lime juice. I would do lemon on this. That's supposed to keep it from browning, so that could help too. But we were going to eat right away, so I just put it all together at once. And then just putting those avocados like off to the side there, I just think it's really beautiful. It really kind of highlights them. And then we're going to put the chicken kind of over the top in the middle. But you can arrange this however you feel is the most beautiful way to do it. And then once you've marinated your chicken for at least an hour, you want to preheat your grill to like a medium-high heat. And then we're just going to cook these for 5 minutes on each side. You really don't want to overcook chicken, but obviously you don't want to undercook it either. So always test it for doneness, but I would err on the side of less with these like really thin chicken breasts like this. These were so juicy and so delicious, like that marinade combined with the fact that this meat is really just fantastic. And then when you use the Good Chop meat, there's actually 3 packages of these. So if you were having like a bigger get together, you could very easily use all of the chicken breasts that come, and you'd have quite a bit more, and it's plenty of food. So I'm just slicing the chicken breast. We're going to place it right over the middle of the salad there, and then sprinkle it with the fresh basil. And then I'm doing some olive oil and balsamic vinegar, just kind of like over it. You could always use like a balsamic vinaigrette if you want to make one or have one. And then I love balsamic glaze. Now, balsamic glaze is just a reduction of balsamic and sugar, and you could make it at home pretty easily, but I like to buy it and just have it on hand. So I just drizzled that over. The one I have is from Aldi. And then sprinkled that with some Maldon sea salt, which is just a finishing salt, and it just kind of brings out like these pops of flavor because it's bigger pieces of salt. And this is so delicious, so beautiful. This next one is salmon bites bowls that I made during a pantry challenge, so you may see some references to that. And surprisingly enough, I only had brown rice to use in this challenge. So you notice I always use a ton of rice, but I didn't have any rice left, and this was actually the last of the rice that I had. So I decided to cook it in the Instant Pot because brown rice takes longer than regular rice does. So we did 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of water, and then set it to high pressure for 15 minutes and then quick release for 5. And it's a super simple Instant Pot recipe, and the rice turned out perfect. And then I had defrosted my wild caught salmon, and I'm just going to take the skin off here, and we're going to dice these up to make salmon bites and make salmon bite bowls. The seasoning on these is super simple, just a teaspoon of salt, about a half a teaspoon of fresh cracked black pepper, a a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then just make sure that the salmon is well mixed and well covered in that. Then you just want to spray down your air fryer basket. I have a larger air fryer, so mine's kind of like a toaster oven type. It's the Instant Omni. Had it for 4 years, and it's well worth its weight in gold kind of thing. Like, I have used it so many times, and I love that it has like the bigger basket. So it's a bit of an investment, but it's definitely an appliance that have made me really, really happy over the years. And then you just want to air fry these at 400 degrees for about 7 minutes. That is going to be the maximum that you need to cook them for. It is crazy how fast these cook up. And so in the meantime, I was just getting my veggies ready. So I just sliced up some scallions, and you'll see I'm going to use these scallions later. So I do put them off to the side, and, utilize every little bit of your veggies if you can, especially when you're not going to the grocery store. And then I had a couple of avocados, which is perfect for this. Salmon and avocado are match made in heaven. So I just sliced those up. Now you notice I'm using this metal avocado tool. I have used the plastic ones where it like runs through and sliced, but this one I've had for like 10 years, and I always find myself using it again and again because I don't love how the plastic one tries to like slice through. It doesn't always make like the perfect avocado slices. And then I also used to slice the avocado within the shell and then pull it out. But lately I found that if you use like a tool like this, or even just a spoon, take out the pieces of the avocado and then slice them up, it just works out a lot better. Like, they're more clean, like the slices are less mushy, and it just looks prettier on your plate. And then I just made up a quick sriracha honey mayo. So it's 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, 1 tablespoon of sriracha, and about a half a tablespoon of honey, and just mix that well. And then I like to thin mine out so that it kind of goes over the bowls better. So just add a little bit of water for that, or you could do milk, whatever you want to do to thin it out. But that definitely find that helps to kind of drizzle it and make it better, because I've used like the mayonnaise before and it just looks gloppy, right? I don't want it to look gloppy. And then you can see these bites were ready. With the wild caught salmon like this, I find that it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look as pretty sometimes as the farmed stuff, but the wild caught is really good. So your choice what you want to use. Either way, it still tastes delicious. And so my rice was ready, and I just made up my bowls, and you can kind of do whatever you want with this. I think edamame would taste really good with it too, or some cooked veggies, but this is what I had on hand. So I just utilized my own pantry, of course, because this is a pantry challenge. So we've got the salmon bites, some avocado, and then I just used some shredded carrots that I had in the fridge, topped that with the scallions, then my sriracha honey mayo, and a little bit of soy sauce. And don't forget, delicious sesame seeds. That makes everything look pretty. I love to have those on hand because it just makes everything that I cook look nicer. These were so good. Very reminiscent of sushi. So this one was introduced to me by my mother-in-law. It's ham and cheese sliders. And once you've had these, you will never go back. Now, I make something similar with Ritz crackers, which are also super delicious, but these are more hearty, especially if you're going to serve like a lunch or brunch. And they're really, really easy to put together.
I'm just going to start off by making the topping. You need 3/4 cup of melted butter, which is probably what makes this so delicious. 1.5 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of dried minced onion, and 1.5 tablespoons of poppy seeds. And I did poppy seeds this time, but I've also done everything bagel seasoning, and that is also super delicious.
So you're going to want a 9x13 pan, but I've actually done this on a sheet pan before, and you'll see later I'm going to do some breakfast sliders, and I did those on the sheet pan because my 9x13 was in use. So you can use whatever type of pan you really need, but I like the 9x13 because they kind of nestle really nicely in this. You can use like the Hawaiian slider rolls, the Walmart brand slider rolls, or in this case, I happened to be near a Whole Foods for some reason, and I had ordered groceries, and for some reason they said they didn't have the slider rolls. I'm not sure if I believe it, but anyway, I had to go to Whole Foods and grab these, which were like brioche ones, and they were really delicious, but they definitely cost a little bit more. So whatever type of slider rolls you can get, I'm rambling, but they're all good. And then I've got a pound of deli ham here, and I'm just putting a bunch of slices over the bottom. So you want to use about half of it on the bottom of your slider rolls. And then we're going to top it with about 12 slices. I think it's about 8 ounces of sliced Swiss cheese. And then we're going to top the rest of it with more of the ham. And then you just put the slider rolls right on top. So it's super simple, just 3 layers like this. And then we're going to put that butter poppy seed sauce right over the top of it. I just poured it on, and then I used like a silicone brush to kind of brush it on and make sure that everything was well covered. And it's that simple. Then you just pop them in the oven. And you want to bake these at 350 degrees for 20 minutes until that cheese melts. And when they come out, they are golden brown and seriously so delicious. These are super addicting. And I mean, they're going to be good not just for Mother's Day, but they'll be perfect for any event that you want to surprise people and make something that is really going to impress for not a lot of time and effort on your part. We're starting off with these pesto chicken bowls, and these are a super easy and full of flavor weeknight dinner. I just love that they're full of vegetables and just overall amazing. I am starting off with my favorite chicken breasts. These are the Good Chop boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And I'm just going to marinate these chicken breasts. I have 4 here in some store-bought pesto. If you have your fresh or your own recipe that you absolutely love, go ahead and use it. I know a lot of people grow basil in the spring and summer, so have at it. But I find that the store-bought stuff is quite delicious, and you can even actually get it at Dollar Tree too. And I've really enjoyed that brand as well. So whatever type of pesto you want to use, you can just marinate those chicken breasts in it. I put mine in the fridge for about an hour, and you could do more or you could do less. You're just going to give it a little bit of flavor to put it on the grill. Now, off to the side, I cut off the bottom of these asparagus, and then I'm just going to marinate them in this container. I normally would actually use like a bag holder and a Ziploc bag, but I was all out of Ziplocs. So we've got about a couple tablespoons of olive oil, about a half a teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of black pepper, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I'm noticing, I'm like, my floor is not that clean, but I have 3 kids. And so that's life. And if you also are a person that's like, my floor isn't that clean all the time, it's okay. It's really not a big deal. And then you just want the juice of half a lemon. And if you had like the lemon juice in the fridge, that would work too. And then you just want to give that a good mix and pop that in the fridge as well. So you could do this like before work in the morning. You could do it right when you get home and just set it aside. It's not a huge deal for like how long it actually marinates, but you just want to get some of the flavor on there. And then I'm just making up some basmati rice according to package instructions. I found that I've actually really been enjoying basmati more than like instant rice or regular, because regular takes too long. And I also made up a bunch of it because I was going to do something with rice the next day. So, always just be thinking about what you're going to do in the following days, because sometimes you can just help yourself out by making a bunch of one thing ahead of time. And then for the chicken, I'm just grilling this for about 4 minutes on each side. It's going to depend on the size of your chicken breasts. These are like perfect. They're so much better than the grocery store because they don't have like all that fat on them. They're really just delicious. And so my basmati rice cooked up just fine. And you can see I had a lot of it. So more than I needed for this event, but it was perfect. And then right before flipping the chicken, I just added in the asparagus. And that only takes about 4 to 5 minutes on the grill to cook up perfectly. It's going to depend on how you like your asparagus. So you may want your asparagus to be like more cooked. I like mine like a little bit still crispy, like it turns that bright green color. I think that that's just perfect. And then while that was cooking, I just diced up a few tomatoes. This is going to be up to you. Like my family's not a big tomato fan for whatever crazy reason, because I love tomatoes. So I just sliced those cherry tomatoes in half, and those are going to go perfectly in this bowl. And then just to assemble the bowls, you want to do some rice, however much you like. And then my little pro tip, I've been trying to get more veggies in lately, is to actually add like half cauliflower rice. I find that if I do full cauliflower rice, you can definitely tell. But when you do half cauliflower, you don't even notice, and you're just automatically getting extra veggies. So totally worth it. And then just add as many tomatoes as you like. You'll notice I don't put any in my husband's because he does not like cherry tomatoes. Again, crazy. And then slice up your chicken and your asparagus into kind of smaller bite-sized pieces. And then just put that chicken and asparagus in the bowl. And then what we're going to do for the pesto is just put like 3 tablespoons in a bowl. You can put as much or as little as you like. And then just add a little water to it just to thin it out. Because that big like thick pesto like that doesn't work very well as like a drizzle or dressing. But you really just need to add water, and it drizzles quite well, and you still get all the flavor. So it makes these beautiful bowls. And this is actually really delicious, really healthy. And Julian, my 6-year-old, you guys are always like, your kids like everything you make. Well, it's not exactly true, because if I was going to I'm not going to put them on camera and be like, that's disgusting. It does happen. I always like the food, and you always like the food, but the kids are, anyway, not that they ever say that. I digress. He doesn't like asparagus, and he was like, this asparagus is actually really good. So I thought that that was a win on this one, and we'll definitely be having these again. So next up, we're making barbecue chicken tacos, and I was inspired to make these by Half Baked Harvest. She definitely has a similar recipe on her website, but of course I had to Maria-ify it and just like make it easier. So I've got about 4 chicken breasts in the crock pot, and then I'm putting about a half a cup of my favorite barbecue sauce. So this is the simplifying version where I'm just gonna do the chicken and shred it up in the crock pot, and I'm just gonna use store-bought barbecue sauce. I'm using the Primal Kitchen, but use what you like. It's going to taste good anyway. And then we'll zhuzh it up later by adding some different spices to it and whatnot. And then while this cooks in the crock pot you can do 2 hours on high or 4 hours on low. And would you look at that? Now the chicken is done. I took like a bite right out of the piece of chicken. It was so delicious. And so, we're going to shred this chicken up, but I'm actually going to get some corn started. So I'm just using the Bird's Eye fire roasted corn and just using the package instructions and cooking it in the oven. We're going to make a corn salsa out of it. I've been using this a couple times lately, and it's really fantastic. So that way you don't have to grill your own corn or anything. Again, make it easy on yourself. I also think the corn salsa would taste good with like canned or frozen corn. So whatever you have will probably work just fine. And so you just want to shred up your chicken. I am the glutton for punishment. I always just use 2 forks and kick myself for it because I don't want to dirty my bowl for the mixer. Like, honestly, that's it. I don't want to dirty the mixer bowl or take out the hand mixer. It like seemed lazy, but then it's not lazy. It's a whole thing. So either way, you can use your mixer bowl, you can use your hand mixer, or you can shred with a fork. And then we are going to make this even more flavorful by adding 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, and 2 teaspoons of chili powder. And this really just brings that extra flavor that you need in this chicken, and it's perfect. And then the corn is done, and at that point, you just want to let it cool off because you don't want actual hot corn in it. But for some reason, the package instructions, like, you do need to cook this corn in order for it to be, proper. You want to make sure that you use proper food stuff. That's important. So I have a parchment-lined baking sheet here, and then I have my tortilla shells, and I'm just actually spraying this with olive oil spray, but you could also just like rub some olive oil on it. And then, they're tacos, so just go ham on the cheese. I like to put a lot of cheese on, make them super ooey gooey. I use shredded cheddar, but you could use like Monterey Jack, or you could use Mexican blend. Whatever you have is totally fine. And then we're going to put the chicken in there. I actually ended up with a little bit of extra chicken, so it kind of probably depends on how many tortilla shells you have and how you're kind of filling your thing up. But just as much chicken as you can kind of fit in there. You're going to make these kind of nice full tacos. And then we're going to fold the tortillas over. Now, I used they're like handmade tortillas, so they're a little bit thicker than what I'm used to for the corn tortillas. And it was really difficult to get them to turn, even though I had microwaved the tortilla shells beforehand. I think I forgot to mention that, but 30 seconds you want to microwave your corn tortilla shells so that they are more pliable. But the problem with these was they were just too thick. So I ended up using a couple toothpicks. So if you run into that problem and you're having trouble getting your tortillas to kind of stay down for the oven, then just use a couple toothpicks and kind of like cross push them through both sides. And then we're going to bake this at 425 degrees for about 8 minutes. And while those cook, it's the perfect time to make up the salsa and the crema that goes with this. So it's like an avocado crema and then a salsa. And I think you might be like, wow, like 2 whole sauces, like this is a lot for a weeknight dinner. But honestly, it's really, really easy because the salsa is just 3 ingredients and so flavorful. So you want a half a cup of chopped cilantro and then 2 scallions chopped, just added to that fire roasted corn. And that's it. You can just put it in the refrigerator and it'll cool down and it's going to be amazing. Like that flavor is all you need. And then for the crema, it's 2 ingredients. So just 2 avocados, pitted and peeled, and you put that in like a food processor. I have like a mini hand one, and then add the juice of a lime. And it makes like, I've never put avocado in the food processor before I tried this, and I was like, this is incredible. I'm always going to do this. It makes this such a smooth sauce. And with the lime, plenty of flavor. So you combine all those things and you put that on the taco with the barbecue. It's out of this world. And yeah, it's that easy. After 8 minutes, you have both your sauces ready to go. And then you just need to flip the tacos. I took out all the toothpicks, I flipped them over, and then I cooked them for another 5 minutes. And that's it. They're done. They are crispy, cheesy. There's so much flavor in the chicken. And then you just top it with that homemade corn salsa and that avocado lime crema. And it feels like you're at a fancy taco shop. And you can't believe you made these on a weeknight. Are you kidding me? So simple. Using that crock pot like a diva. So this next one is also another slow cooker one. We've got orange chicken, and this is better than the restaurant kind of thing. And I was encouraged to make this because one thing is I just wanted to have some orange chicken. Like, it sounded really good. And another thing is that I had some marmalade left over from a like orange ground beef recipe that I made. It's on the website, and I'll put it in my description box below. But I want to use the rest of marmalade. So I'm like, what are we going to do? So now I have 2 recipes I can use marmalade for, both fantastic. So it's a win-win, especially if you have leftover marmalade from something. I'm always like, what are you going to do with this? Now you know what to do. We're going to make orange chicken. So I've got a couple pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and you just want to cut those into cubes. And I did finally get some Ziploc bags. So I've got my trusty bag holder and Ziploc bag here. And we're going to put the chicken here because we're going to coat it in cornstarch. And this is like the absolute best way to do this. You want to put 1/3 cup of cornstarch and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt and pepper. And that's it. We're just going to kind of coat that chicken in the cornstarch and a little salt and pepper. And that's going to be that for that chicken. Now for the sauce, you want 1 cup of marmalade, 1/4 cup of soy sauce, a tablespoon of rice wine vinegar, 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then a teaspoon of sesame oil. Then you just want to spray down your slow cooker with the cooking spray and then pour in that chicken. I don't know about you, but like cornstarch and chicken gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, it makes my skin... You can comment below if you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's the feeling of the cornstarch. It tastes delicious. It's fine once it's cooked, but it's just the feeling of cornstarch. It just gives me goosebumps. And so you want to pour the sauce over, and we're going to cook on low for 3 hours. You may need to go longer depending on your crock pot. Mine just cooks pretty fast, always has. It's just a regular crock pot brand, so I figure these days everyone's kind of like that. You do want to make sure your chicken's cooked all the way through. And then I had a couple of cups of broccoli. I just microwaved it according to package instructions and then added it in there. And I found that that was a great way to kind of cover the chicken in the sauce. And if you look at this, like, this looks like restaurant chicken, and it tastes like it too. It's so good, but without like that deep fry flavor that you get, which I prefer it not to have. I just put a little bit of sesame seeds over this and had some rice with it. It was actually like great meal prep and so delicious. We're gonna get started off with cashew chicken, and this has been a family favorite for years now, and it's super simple. You just want to start by making a sauce. So I am cooking up some rice on the side, and this would be good over rice noodles as well, or even some cauliflower rice. Lately I've found that I actually like to do like half cauliflower rice, half regular rice to get some more veggies in, and you can't even tell the difference. So for the sauce, I'm over medium heat. I've got 6 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 teaspoon of toasted sesame oil, or you could just use regular sesame oil as well, 3/4 a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce, and then about 1/2 teaspoon of fresh grated ginger. I always just keep a root of ginger in my freezer, and it makes it super easy to just grate into anything. And it's really inexpensive, so it adds a lot of flavor. But if you don't have that, you can also just use about 1/2 teaspoon of dried powdered ginger, and then 2 cloves of grated garlic as well. Or again, you could use about a teaspoon of garlic powder. Give it a good stir, and then add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and whisk that in as well. And you're just going to bring this to a simmer and let it cook just until it thickens and bubbles. And that cornstarch really makes this sauce fantastic. And you can kind of remove it from the heat and see where it's at. Like, if you feel like it's too thick, you can add water to thin it out, and it will make it kind of pour better over the chicken and the broccoli. That cornstarch really makes this sauce nice and thick and kind of feel like the restaurant. So now I'm just going to dice up my chicken, and I'm using chicken breasts, but you could also use boneless, skinless chicken thighs, or even bone-in chicken thighs. You just need to take the skin off and take them off the bone, but any sort of chicken is going to do for this. And as far as the sizing of the pieces goes, you just want to be mindful of like how big a piece you want to eat of chicken, and that's how big you can cut them. And because we're cooking all the chicken at the same time, you also want to be mindful that try your best to make sure that the cubes are similar in size so that they cook in the same amount of time. So I have 2 smaller size sheet pans, and I lined them with some parchment paper, but you could also spray your sheet pan down with some cooking spray or grease it. And then I'm just going to add a generous serving of salt and pepper over the chicken. And then you want to drizzle about half of the sauce over the chicken. You can see that this is a little bit thicker. I ended up thinning it out later, but you want to get that sauce on that chicken so that it gets lots of flavor. And then we're going to bake this at 400 degrees for about 8 minutes. And then while that chicken's cooking, I'm going to take this opportunity and time to slice a couple of peppers. I have yellow and orange today, but you could use red. I haven't tried it with green, but I do find that green peppers taste a little bit different than red and yellow and orange for some reason. But if you love green peppers, I think it would taste great. And so you just want to cut those also into bite-sized pieces. And this is kind of my method for cutting peppers. If you start from the top down, it seems like it's much easier and then you don't get like a bunch of seeds in there. So I really like it. And then once the 8 minutes is up, you just want to add about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of broccoli. Now you could use fresh broccoli. I'm just using frozen. You can see it's coming right out of the bag. And that is a great budget tip to be able to make your vegetables last longer and still get a lot of veggies in without spending a ton of money. The frozen vegetables are flash frozen, so they retain all the nutrients and they're at the peak of freshness. I also added about 2/3 a cup of cashews. Mine were salted and roasted, but you could also use like unsalted if you don't want to add the extra salt. And then all of the peppers that I sliced up, and I'm just evenly dividing this among the 2 pans. If you wanted to use one large pan, that's totally fine too. And then another about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And at this point, I added a little bit of water to my sauce because it really had thickened up. And then I added about half of what was left of the sauce over all the vegetables. And then you want to put this back in the oven, still at 400 degrees for about 12 minutes until that chicken is fully cooked through. And then you can take that back out of the oven. We're going to put the remaining sauce all over the top, just drizzle it with it. And then you can garnish it with whatever you like. I used some toasted sesame seeds and some sliced green scallions just to make it pretty and give it a little bit of crunch and pop. And it is fantastic. Sometimes I just feel like when meals look pretty, they taste better. And this is a gorgeous one. And it's full of veggies, super healthy for you. And I'm going to show you a recipe for sheet pan pesto chicken parm with these delicious chicken breasts. Now, I love the chicken breasts from Good Shop. And it was completely my fault that I forgot to take these out. So when I defrosted them in the microwave, I went a little bit long. So they should not have that white on them. However, they still tasted absolutely delicious. So if you ever overcook your chicken a little bit, if you're defrosting it, not a big deal. It's still going to taste great, or at least the Good Chop chicken does. And so you want to put some salt and pepper on those chicken breasts. I was just making this for myself and my husband. My kids were eating something different this evening. And then you just take store-bought pesto or homemade pesto. I know this time of year a lot of people are making homemade. I don't have a basil plant that I'm kind of like a black thumb. So it's not my time in life to be making a garden right now, but maybe when my kids are older. So you just want to cover that in pesto and some tomato sauce. You'll see I've got a bowl right here. I had some sauce I used for something else, so I saved it, and then I was able to use it for this. So I was able to kind of like double use the sauce and save money. And so just put that sauce right over the chicken. And this is a really nice healthy meal because you're not using the breaded chicken or deep frying it in oil or anything like that. And then you just want to top this with a generous helping of Parmesan cheese. Probably used about 1/3 cup of parm. And then bake this at 375 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then you can serve this as is, or you can serve it with pasta. So I used some rigatoni and it was really nice. And then once mine was about 25 minutes or up, then you can either cover it with some mozzarella cheese. So I just put a generous helping on top of each, or you could use provolone cheese. That's really good too. So a lot of times I just use what I have on hand. And then I just put this on broil to kind of cook up that cheese and served it with the pasta. This chicken is always my absolute favorite because it is just so juicy and never dry and just cooked up perfectly. Now, the pesto on this chicken parm, I mean, it's just really the little added something, right? It adds so much flavor and it really makes it such a summery dish. All right, we're going to get started with a barbecue ranch chicken sandwich. These are truly delicious. And then I was also able to make a little salad on the side and make some sweet potato fries with that fry seasoning. So I just started with a Ziploc bag and I put my chicken in there. I'm just standing it up with this like little stand I have. These things are always linked in the description box down below. So if you want to grab one, I use them quite a bit. They're super helpful. And then I've got my ranch packet, and I just poured that right over the chicken. And then I put about a cup of barbecue sauce on it, and then you just want to mix it up. So it's super simple, just 2 ingredients. You're mixing it in there. And that's kind of the marinade for the chicken. You could use boneless, skinless chicken thighs, but I was using breasts. So whatever you have will work. This was also awesome because I started using those condiments. So that was like a leftover bottle of barbecue sauce I had in the fridge. So you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. 1 ranch packet, one half a package of barbecue, and you're all set. And I probably marinated that for like 20 minutes just while the grill was heating up, but you could marinate it for longer if you'd like to. And then I had a couple sweet potatoes, so I was going to make those sweet potato fries. I just cut my sweet potatoes into wedges. And then I put them in a bag with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and that fry seasoning, and just shook it up and kind of make sure that they were well covered. And then I put them on parchment lined baking sheets, and I just evenly spaced them out so they were all next to each other and they're nice and flat. And then you just want to bake these at 450 degrees for 12 minutes and then flip them over and then do another 12 minutes. And then I just grilled the chicken breast over medium-high heat for 8 to 10 minutes on each side. It's going to depend on the size of your chicken breast. If you have like the really thick ones from the grocery store, then you may want to slice them in half and then grill them, and that would potentially take a little bit less time. These were kind of a medium size, so I think it probably took about 10 minutes on each side. And the timing just ended up kind of perfect on this. So the sweet potatoes were done. I just took those out of the oven. And then when the chicken came off the grill, I ended up just slicing it into kind of smaller pieces because it was a little thick to be adding directly to buns for a sandwich. Again, if you had sliced them in half, if they were the larger ones, that would have actually been perfect. And you could actually put that whole patty right inside of the bun. And then if I had like sliced cheese, I probably would have put it over the top, but I didn't. So I just had some pieces of cheddar and I put that on there because I just always want to make the best of what I already have. I had some lettuce and some tomato, and then we just served that with some sweet potato fries. And this was a perfect dinner, like truly delicious. So next up I'm making steak fajitas, and we're going to use the Lipton onion soup mix with this. Now last time I made these, I used flank steak, but this time I had some local grass-fed skirt steak that worked out really well. And for the marinade, I'm using a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of water, 1 packet of Lipton onion soup mix, a 1/4 cup of lime juice. You can use fresh, I just use like 1 lime, or you could use store-bought, that's totally fine too. And then about a teaspoon of lime zest. And if you don't have that, it's probably not a big deal in this. It's still going to be really flavorful and delicious. And then 2 cloves of garlic. You can do grated or chopped or minced, but you could also do 2 teaspoons of garlic powder if you don't have fresh garlic on hand. Then you want a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And that's your marinade. And just marinate this for a few hours. I like to do it for like 4 hours or maybe overnight. And then I just grilled this over high heat until medium, and that's like 140 degrees in the center. You could also do medium rare or medium well, so you cook it to your liking. And then on the side, I just sliced up some onions and peppers and cook these over low heat with some olive oil for about 20 minutes. It takes a little while for them to get caramelized, but it is so worth it. This is like so perfect for fajitas. And then when the steak was done, I just cut it against the grain into thin slices. So like I was mentioning earlier, you don't have to use skirt steak for this. I know that's sometimes hard to find. You can use flank steak, you could use London broil. You could also use this marinade on chicken or on shrimp, whatever you want to put on your fajitas, it will work just fine. And then you just want to serve them up with some tortillas warmed up and your favorite toppings. And these are seriously amazing. First recipe is for poor man's meal. All right, I didn't get this on camera because for some reason it didn't record, which is super fun, but I had leftover ears of corn, so I cut them off the cob. I had 1 chopped onion, and then I diced up a potato from canned potatoes. So yes, you can use canned potatoes, or if you have leftover potatoes, you can use those. You just wouldn't want to like par cook them in the microwave first, or maybe they're already boiled, but you want them to be somewhat cooked. And I'm just cooking this up over a medium-high heat with olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. And you just want to cook it until it gets like a little bit crispy on the outside. So probably, this has been about probably 7 minutes, stirring pretty frequently, but you do want to let it sit every couple minutes so that it gets those charred portions. And then I have my piece de resistance, the delicious leftover hamburgers. So we're just going to mash those up using my meat masher right inside of this and heat everything through once those potatoes and those corn are nice and crispy. And then you can serve it as is. This tastes delicious with ketchup.
But you can also put some shredded cheese over the top, and that is also an added bonus. So both are really good.
And I feel like visually, like it's not that exciting with all the colors, but the flavor is amazing. It's a great way to use up those leftover hamburgers. And the family really enjoyed it. It's also a great way to use like leftover corn, because this time of year, sometimes you like make too many ears, you know? So it's great to just use fresh corn or frozen or canned.
I give it a 10 out of 10. I give it a 10 out of 10.
Next up, we're making a zucchini lasagna. And again, we're using like some fresh and seasoned vegetables here with the zucchini. You could just make regular lasagna with this too, but zucchini is a really nice way to get some more veggies in. So for the zucchini, you just want to slice the ends off of it and then slice it into thin slices. You could also use a mandolin for this if you'd like, but I couldn't find mine, so I just ended up slicing that, maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch thick. And then there's a couple different ways to get the water out of a zucchini, because if you just put the zucchini straight into a zucchini lasagna, it's going to be super watery because there's a lot of water content inside the zucchini. So you can actually grill this up if you'd like and cook it down a little bit. You can also cook it in a pan. I'm actually doing what's called like the lazy method. So I just actually took the slices of zucchini and dredged them in some flour with salt and pepper. But it's your choice on how, which way you want to get that liquid out. Salt also will take some of the liquid out, but you do either want to put them in flour or actually kind of grill them down first. And then for the filling, I used a cottage cheese filling. So you just want 1 egg and 2 cups of cottage cheese. Now you can, of course, cook up a pound of ground beef for this, but here are my leftover burgers. And then I just used my meat masher to mash those up into smaller pieces. This is another great way to use up those leftover burgers. And then to that, you added 1 jar of tomato sauce or marinara sauce, whatever your favorite is for making a lasagna. You could even make your own if you'd like to. And just mix that up. So if you're cooking your own beef on the stove, go ahead and cook that up, drain the grease, and then just add the sauce in. And then just spray down a 9x13 pan and then dredge those zucchini inside of your flour mixture and lay those in the bottom of the pan evenly as possible. They're only going to make 2 layers of zucchini, so but you don't want to like layer them up too much, so just try and just lay them side by side. And then top that with the cottage cheese mixture. You can use all of the cottage cheese mixture in this because we're just going to do that 1 layer. And then top that with half of the ground beef and tomato sauce mixture. Then you can use the rest of the zucchini over the top. If you have too much, if you have some left over, that's okay. Just kind of save that off to the side. Maybe you can cook that up on a pan and put it in omelets or something like that. And that's the nice thing, that you haven't really dredged it in the flour yet, so you can use it for something different. And then cover that with the rest of the ground beef and the sauce and some mozzarella cheese. Now you want to cover this with tin foil and bake at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes. Then you're going to take the tin foil off and cook it for another 10 minutes to just melt the cheese on top. So these meals are great for those leftover hamburgers. They're also great for a pantry challenge. And a pantry challenge is when you skip the store and go 1 to 5 days without buying anything. So you just cook with what you already have. So this may be good, especially if you have a garden, to use up some leftover burgers and some zucchini this time of year.
So for this one, I'm making a rice noodles with baked tofu and sugar snap peas with a peanut sauce, which is phenomenal. This was inspired by something I saw in a magazine, but they had coconut milk in there and I didn't have any coconut milk, and I figured, why don't I just like switch that out for something I have on hand? So then I went and searched for a second recipe with the similar ingredients, right? So it's like, okay, I had bought tofu because it was on sale. I have rice noodles already, so all I need to do is get sugar snap peas. And then if I can like pass on the coconut milk, maybe I can make a peanut sauce, because that's where my mind went, or maybe something with soy sauce. So I was easily able to find a separate recipe that actually had like a peanut soy sauce that was gonna go with the meal. And so like one thing inspired me and I ended up in another place, which is amazing. So that's kind of how I manage not purchasing extra items, because it's kind of my goal to make sure that I don't purchase more than 5 items per meal. But also if I can just stretch what I already have, if I can, like in this case, I only purchased 1 thing. That's a pantry meal at its best, right? So I have rice noodles and sugar snap peas. I ended up purchasing these. And then last week tofu was on sale, so I purchased that, put that in the fridge, and I found a recipe for it already.
Fun fact, I used to work at Pizza Hut in high school, and there was this one guy that worked there. I was just talking about him. I thought he was so cute. He's in a band or whatever. He was older than me, so whatever he said, it was like Bible to me. But he was talking, I think he was vegetarian, and he was telling me about how good tofu is. And I was like, I don't know about that. But he said people aren't eating tofu right. and that you really have to take the tofu out of the container and let it sit under a book to get all of the liquid out before you eat it, and then it's actually super delicious. So that's what we're doing today, and I've never forgotten this fact, and it's actually very true. So it cooks up a lot better if it doesn't have all of that water in it. There's just so much liquid. I'm gonna let mine sit for like an hour to kind of like really mush it down, and get all of that liquid out so that it cooks up really well.
I sliced it up into cubes and then sprayed the bottom of a pan with some olive oil, and then put the cubes onto the pan, and then sprayed that again with olive oil, or you could just drizzle some on if that's what you have, and then just top that with salt and pepper, and we're baking that for 30 minutes at 475 degrees. While that cooks, I'm just gonna get my sauce started. So in total, this meal is gonna be probably around 40 minutes, which is a very reasonable weeknight meal. So for the sauce, I use 3 cloves of minced garlic. You could also use garlic powder for this. I just happen to have some garlic around. I'd use about a teaspoon, a half a cup of warm water, a half a cup of peanut butter. And funny story about my peanut butter, I just got this and then my son didn't put the cap on, and you can see the drips. I took it out of the cabinet, thought it was on, the cover was on, no. And this is like the really good, you know, all natural, but also creamy peanut butter. And it just spilled everywhere. And I was like, well, there's $5 down the drain, so fun. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of honey, tablespoon of sriracha. I put a little less in because my kids are gonna eat it. I don't want it to be too spicy. A tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, and then if you can use like a tablespoon of fresh lime juice, but I didn't have fresh lime juice. And sometimes what I'll do if I know that I don't have like extra limes around, which is just silly, sometimes I don't get as much as maybe I might need, is to save them, because you can use the zest of the lime. So I actually had saved these from using them the other day, and I still had zest on them, so I just figured I'd put the zest in there and give it some lime flavor. You could always also use squeezed lime juice. The thing is about pantry cooking and cooking on a budget, like if you're a person who does want to try and keep your family's budget to $600 a month, I have to do things like that regularly, like swap things out. And it's not necessarily the act of money that I'm saving in that moment, like just because that like lime zest is cheaper than lime. It's just the fact that I avoided buying 2 things at the grocery store for this meal specifically. Like I didn't buy coconut milk and I didn't buy an extra lime. And that's a few dollars, but that's a few dollars I can spend on something else that's really important to us, like really fresh fruit, or I can buy in bulk in other areas. So I can buy more of my frozen broccoli that I love to keep in the freezer and items like that. So there are just little trade-offs that you can make in order to make your budget feel really much more robust. Just not by buying things that feel like slightly, it seems absurd to say, but slightly frivolous. I almost forgot, I bought peanuts and I knew these were gonna be a great snack. I was like, oh, they'll also be really good on this tofu dish.
So you just want to cook the rice noodles according to package instructions. A lot of them like are say to soak them or cook them for a little bit of time. These particular ones, they're like the rice sticks, they're thicker. They were like 8 minutes to cook, and it really did take 8 minutes. After 5 minutes, so when there's 3 minutes left, whatever your cooking instructions are, when there's 3 minutes left, you want to add those sugar snap peas in and let them cook for 3 minutes. And it's the perfect amount of time to just bring out all those sugars. And then the tofu should be ready, coming right out of the oven, and it ends up so crispy and like it's not going to fall apart in your pasta. The problem with not baking it and not reducing the amount of liquid is that it basically falls into a mush and it turns into like a ricotta, which is fine, but not really great for a meal like this. You just want to add that sauce right to your rice noodles and your sugar snap peas. I forgot to say, you do want to drain the water out of this, but you can just drain it in a strainer, put it back in the same pot so we don't have to make extra dishes. And then you can just pour the tofu right in there as well and mix it all up. And I served mine with some crushed peanuts, some sliced scallions, and sesame seeds on top. And I love to keep sesame seeds around, so if you ever have like a few bucks in your budget and you want to grab them, they just add like a little bit of pop to any Asian dish, and it makes it feel like it came from a restaurant or something. Like it's just that addition that you need to make it a little extra special. And this was absolutely fantastic. And my husband was trying to give me attitude. He doesn't like tofu generally. He complains about it, but he absolutely loved this dish. So I was kind of laughing at him like, you were wrong. It was so good.
It's our birthday celebration.
Benny, is it good?
Yeah.
You like
Yeah,
it?
birthday present. I give it a 5 out of 5.
Wow. Want to do a rating?
This one we're gonna make Marry Me chicken in the crock pot, and I've made Marry Me chicken on the stove before. I mean, seriously delicious meal. But this time we're gonna do it in the slow cooker because I have some time now. It's about noon and the boys have to go to swim tonight. So I'm like, let's just get this going now. And then that way when they get home, it'll be ready. It won't take very long in the slow cooker, but I don't have to I can do the active stuff at this current time. So I got this large package of chicken and we're just gonna use 2 of these chicken breasts. I'm gonna dice them up into pieces and we're just gonna season them with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. And then I'm gonna put them in a large pan over a medium-high heat and we're just gonna sear them on all sides. So it's gonna sear in the flavor, make sure they're nice and juicy, and get that seasoning on there too. And then you'll notice I had the other 2 chicken breasts. I'm just gonna throw those in a bag and put them in the freezer. And then while that's cooking, just wanna make up a little slurry. So I've got a 1.5 cups of chicken broth or chicken bone broth, or you could use chicken bouillon with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. And then you just wanna pour that in the bottom of your slow cooker and mix that in with 1 cup of heavy cream and 4 cloves of minced garlic, or you can use garlic powder if that's all you have. You can use a teaspoon of minced garlic. To that, we're gonna add some seasonings. So we're gonna do a 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and then just a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. And if you want, you can add in some red pepper flakes too. I'm not gonna do that because my kids don't like that spicy flavor, but it's up to you. All right, then you just wanna add your seared chicken to your crock pot. We're gonna try and do about a 1/2 cup of sun-dried tomatoes just over the top here. I'm just gonna cook this on high for 2 hours, but you can do low for 4 to 6, depending on how fast your crock pot cooks. You just wanna make sure that chicken is fully cooked through. All right, it's been a couple hours. Steamy, it looks so good though. I'm just gonna add in I don't know, a cup of ditalini pasta. You could use orzo here too. My main goal is that I want something small that will cook quickly. And I'm just gonna let this go for 30 minutes. Yeah, this is perfect. Look at that, so creamy. Lots of flavor in this. It's gonna be delicious. I almost forgot, we gotta add 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. This is shredded, but you can use just regular Kraft if you want, but holy smokes, this is really gonna add even more deliciousness to this. It's so silky. Yum. Seriously. There's the cheese. You know it's getting cheesy? Oh yeah. So hyped.
So for this new one, we're doing a carne asada Italian taco. I don't even know how to label this. I'm sure by the time I make this video, I'll come up with a name for it. So I love Mississippi pot roast, and some people call it Italian pot roast. And generally, I would make it and serve it with mashed potatoes or something. And there are a few different ways to make it. Generally, you're gonna use some au jus gravy mix, and I have actually just 1/2 packet in here. But this works out really well because I would also use a chuck steak, which I did not get. So I ordered groceries and I got this top round. And don't worry about this, it won't come off, but that's okay. If it won't come off, I assume it's not gonna come off when I cook either. So I'm just gonna use this package of au jus, and we're gonna make it similar to how we would make a Mississippi pot roast, but instead of using ranch seasoning and butter, I'm just gonna put this on, and then I'm almost gonna put an enchilada seasoning. So we start with au jus. This is a small top round steak, so 1/2 is gonna be just fine here. We're gonna put some pepperoncinis on this. So again, we're very similar to what we would be doing with a Mississippi roast. Then I've got a cup of water, and I started with a cube of beef bouillon, but you could use beef broth as well. And so this is the kind of enchilada seasoning. So I'm gonna put about 1/2 tablespoon of chili powder, 1/2 tablespoon of cumin, maybe 1/4, not that much. Teaspoon of onion powder, teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and that's it for seasoning, so that's all of it. And I am gonna mix this around a little bit. Get
seasonings in there. So I want to cook it on low for about 6 hours, but if you had a larger piece, you want to go like 8 to 10. All right, so this should be done. Oh yeah, coming right apart. Perfect. And I tried this meat a few minutes ago. It is truly delicious. Such a good flavor. So I'm actually gonna take all this out of here because we're gonna use this as the sauce for kind of like a birria type taco. So you can use whatever size you want. I'm using street taco size and I'm just dipping it into juice. Then I'm putting it on a pan with either, you can use butter or olive oil or any oil. I'm just using an olive oil spray. And I actually have this quesadilla cheese, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen this a lot. You can just put that right on there. We're gonna end up folding these over after. And then we can just put some of our meat on each one. You can go as wild and crazy as you want, or you can go light, doesn't matter. You can make these however you want. I'm just gonna put a little more cheese over the top so that it sticks well. You just wanna fold these over.
And then you just flip them once they are crispy on one side and get them crisp up on the other side. You can see how when you dip them into that juices, it gets really crispy on the sides of the taco, which is amazing and just so crunchy and yummy. And then you just take that sauce, all that sauce, pour that into little bowls, and that's like that birria dip. And you can actually dip the mini tacos into the dip. It tastes incredible. Like seriously, this is so delicious. This is a must try. I know this one's a little bit more time consuming, but totally worth it. Start off by making some very easy apple pork chops.
We've just got a tablespoon of oil on a skillet over medium-high heat. I'm halving the recipe tonight because I just have 3 pork chops that I got at my local butcher because I had a gift card, and then when I got the gift card, if you spend $50, you get to spin the wheel, and then when I spun the wheel, I got a free pound of pork chops, which is awesome. So we're just gonna use these tonight, and I'm actually gonna give the kids leftovers because they don't really like pork chops anyway. But I figured I'd choose a really quick and simple recipe. So once the oil is hot, you wanna place the pork chops on the pan. I'm gonna cook those for like 3 to 5 minutes on each side and just sear them. Then you want to remove the pork chops from the pan. I'm just going to add in a 1/4 cup of chicken broth or bone broth, or you could use some bouillon, 1 apple sliced, and 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar.
You also want to add in just a sprinkle of dried thyme, dried oregano, and a little bit of cinnamon. And you could also use fresh herbs for this if that's what you have on hand. And just give that a stir.
And then you want to cook that for like 3 to 5 minutes until it's kind of cooked down and all the brown bits are off the bottom of the pan. Then we can add the pork chops back to the pan and just cook until they're fully cooked through. So we'll see how long mine take. So I actually ended up adding a little bit of broth to mine because my sauce ended up getting a little thick. And then pork is tricky, so you want to get to 144 degrees. So I've just been testing with a thermometer here to see when it's done. And so at 140, I took mine off because I knew it was going to continue to cook a little bit more after you take it off. That's kind of like the resting of the pork. And you can see that I have it off the heat, but the thermometer is still going up. So it does continue to cook after you take it off the heat. And we're gonna be just about a 144, and we're gonna be able to enjoy a delicious meal.
In total, my pork chops are probably back in the pan for about 10 minutes, and that's your choice whether you want to add more liquid or not. And then I just served it on a small plate because we were just going to have these pork chops, put a little bit of the sauce over the top. You can actually just kind of pour it on top with some of those apples. And I ended up serving mine with some leftover sweet potato mashed potatoes I had, and it was such a delicious fall treat. And I mean, it's really for any time of year, but pork chops are great because they're really inexpensive, and this meal feels like it's from like a 5-star restaurant, which probably makes sense because they're always trying to find like, you know, cheaper ways to make something that tastes really good, and this is one of those. But it's like a weeknight meal. Like it took less than 30 minutes, and it was all in one pan. absolutely incredible. Sticking with our theme, we're going to be using some good chopped ground beef to make a very easy Mexican casserole.
This is a really great one too to make double of and maybe freeze, or if you have a larger family, you can just make 2 times the recipe and a couple of casserole dishes. You're going to be in good shape. Forgive my kind of messy counter here. I made bacon this morning and I should have cleaned it up and I didn't, so it happens. So to your beef, you just want to add 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning, which is not quite a whole packet, so that's good. You can save that for something else. 1 can of chili beans. I really only need half of this can of crushed tomatoes, so I'll save the other half for something else. Maybe some pizza sauce or something. And then 1 can of Rotel or any diced tomatoes with green chilies. I've even in the past done like fire roasted tomatoes with a can of green chilies, so whatever you have on hand. Oh, and you can drain that meat off too. This was just very lean, so I really didn't need to. That delicious good chopped beef. So this is well mixed. Just gonna spray the bottom of my 9x13. And then you can use corn tortillas. I happen to have these cassava flour tortillas. Should be fine. We're just gonna layer them. I'm actually just gonna break these in half. So we have like this and like this, which is perfect. And then we're just gonna pour half of the mixture. Oops. Try not to spill it. Into the 9x13. And then when you want to use 2 cups of cheese and put 1 cup over this layer. I'm gonna keep a little bit off because my oldest does not like cheese, so we'll only be covering this area here. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the tortillas. Put on top here. Break them in half. Ta-da. And then layer it once more. And then we'll just bake this at 350 degrees for 20 minutes.
So as you can see here, it turned out amazing. It was like this lasagna enchilada vibe. The kids loved it, and it was just super easy to kind of set and forget, and just like really low ingredient, you know, great for the pantry.
5 out of 5. I don't like it. I love it. Yeah. 3 out of 5.
Okay.
I give it a 10 out of 0.
For this one, we're gonna make a copycat Panera bread, broccoli and cheddar cheese soup. We're gonna start with a half a cup of chopped onion, 1 cup of finely chopped carrots, 4 cups of finely chopped broccoli florets, and 2 cloves of minced garlic. You can also hear in the background, I have some bacon going because I'm gonna put bacon crumbles on top. It's not really a Panera thing, but it's a me thing. So if you have bacon, cook it up. You can always also use the Walmart or Costco bacon bits, or even just the sprinkle ones. In a medium pot, I've melted a 1/4 cup of butter, which is I think 4 tablespoons. I'm just gonna add the chopped onion and garlic and cook for like 6 to 8 minutes, just until it's tender and like translucent. Then you want to stir in the broccoli, carrot, 3 cups of chicken stock, 2 cups of half and half. And to that, I'm just going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 bay leaves, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're just going to bring this up to a boil. Just turn it down a little bit and like put it at a simmer. And then once those vegetables are tender, that's gonna be like 10 minutes or so. We're gonna mix in a 1/4 cup of cornstarch until the water is smooth. So you just wanna like stir it into the soup, make sure there's no lumps or anything like that. We're gonna bring that up to a boil and cook until it's kind of thickened. At this point, you wanna remove those bay leaves, and then you can stir in 2.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I happen to have white cheddar. I think you could also use like yellow cheddar. You could really use whatever type of cheese you have or want to use. I think it would even taste good like with some Swiss or Gruyere. So whatever cheese you have on hand, I think you can still make this. I mean, it's not gonna be exactly Panera copycat at that point, but I think you can make it work. I'm just gonna serve this in bread bowls. So I got these little bread bowls at the bakery section in my store. They're $1.99 each, so I feel like that's kind of expensive for a dinner. I was kind of splurging, so I was like, oh, it fit in my budget, and I thought it'd be cute and fun to have. But you totally don't need to do that. You can just serve it with some like hunks of bread on the side, even like oyster crackers or something like that. And this makes a magnificent dinner. It tastes just like Panera. It is so good.
For this one, we're making Olive Garden chicken and gnocchi soup. I know this is like super popular. We're gonna start by chopping 1 stalk of celery, a half a white onion. We're gonna dice that up, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, and then a half a cup of shredded carrots. We're just gonna shred those up. And then you're also gonna need, I have about 2 cups of cooked chicken. I just cubed it up. You could use rotisserie chicken, you could use shredded chicken, you could do, I think you can even do canned chicken. I mean, it's not gonna be exactly like Olive Garden then, but canned chicken would suffice. And then heat about a tablespoon of olive oil in a large pot over medium heat. And once that's warm, we're gonna add in that celery, onions, garlic, and carrots. And we're gonna saute that until those onions are translucent. That usually takes me like 3 to 5 minutes. Then you wanna add in the chicken and 4 cups of chicken broth. I'm actually gonna use chicken bouillon, so whatever you have on hand I think will be just fine. Also gonna add about a teaspoon of salt, a little bit of pepper, a teaspoon of dried thyme, and then bring that to a boil. At this point, it's like almost done. We're gonna add in the gnocchi and boil for 3 minutes, and then bring it down to a simmer for 10 more minutes. And then once everything's simmered together, that's really gonna get the flavors in there. You wanna stir in 2 cups of half and half, and then a cup of spinach. And I'm actually gonna bring this over a friend's house. We're having a trunk or treat celebration, and it's gonna be a great potluck.
And it really was. Everyone was super happy with it. You can see that I transferred it to a crock pot, and that way I could keep it warm. And then right before we were ready to serve, I was able to add in that half and half and that fresh spinach so that it didn't like curdle or the spinach didn't wilt down too much. And it was absolutely delicious. Something that I've made, actually this was from last year when I originally filmed this. So I've made it a few times since then, and it's really become a family favorite.
For this one, we're making an apple onion grilled cheese. And this can be very easily be a vegetarian recipe, but I do have some prosciutto, so I'm gonna add that to mine as a little something extra. I'm just gonna make one, but this is very inexpensive to make as much as you like. I have some sourdough bread here, but you can use any type of bread that you want, and apples. So very few ingredients, and we're gonna make something that's super fall flavored, amazing. Start by slicing your onion, and you just wanna slice it into rounds versus like chopping it up into pieces. And then I've got a tablespoon of butter in a pan over medium heat. We're gonna add in the onion to that, cook it down for like 5 minutes. You can add in some apple cider if you want, or like something sweet. I don't have any, so I'm not gonna do it. I don't wanna buy apple cider just for the recipe necessarily. I can make a delicious caramelized onion I'm gonna keep cooking for another 5 minutes. You can add water in there, and that will help that onion to cook down a little bit faster versus like adding the apple cider. You could even do some chicken broth, that works as well. And once that onion is really caramelized, then it's pretty much ready. I'm just gonna sprinkle on a tiny bit, like a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe even less, of sage and thyme, and then a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes, and that's your choice whether you wanna have like a little spicy in that too. And then I have my sliced up apple. You wanna make sure that you slice that super thin. And if you're gonna do prosciutto, this is where you remove the onions, and then we're gonna place the prosciutto in the bottom of the pan and kind of crisp it up. While that's crisping, you can slice your bread, or maybe you already have sliced bread. I'm gonna butter both sides of the bread, like the back sides. So each slice is gonna have half of it buttered. And then again, you wanna, in a pan over medium heat, we're gonna add cheddar cheese. You can add as much or as little as you want. I have some block cheese, so I just put it into slices. And then the apple, the prosciutto, and those caramelized onions. And you wanna cook it open face for probably 3 to 5 minutes. You want it to crisp up on the other side. You can close it up. That'll help to kind of like get it to steam together a little bit more. I like to put a little bit of cheese on both sides so that it kind of has like that cheese to keep it together. And then once it's crispy on both sides, your cheese is melted, everything's warmed through. I mean, that's it. That is an incredible fall meal. You could even serve this with like some tomato soup or some chicken noodle or something. I just had mine as it was. I felt like a goddess. It's truly, truly incredible.
I want to thank you so much for watching today. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for amazing budget cooking content all year long.